So here I am, watching videos after videos of Indonesians sharing ghost stories, going to haunted locations, doing ghost rituals, and I'm here sitting at my desk in Melbourne, in Australia, doing what I hope to be accepted, somehow, as a practice of ethnography. I look at these videos and there are familiar things. The stories are familiar, the ghosts are familiar, the mode of presentation is very familiar. I used to be a live broadcaster in Indonesia. And there is something really familiar about all of this. It could have been me in my bedroom in Indonesia talking to a webcam, talking to my audience. The live comments, of course, are not familiar in format. But there is something there that I recognized. The violence, the pace, the militaristic nationalism, the in-group strategies, the fast-moving and ever-changing slang words to define who you belong to and to shout out all possible differences that do not conform. And I've been thinking about liveness. If liveness, as Couldry says, is a category that naturalises the idea that through media we share our attention to what matters for us as a society, what are the things that matter for Indonesians today? And what are the practices around live streaming, around liveness that we can see in Indonesian live streams? This is a live stream of the Indonesian flag-raising ceremony in 2019, commemorating Indonesian independence, streaming live from Monas, the national monument in Jakarta. The monument is a powerful symbol. And you can see here it's surrounded by a mess of other symbols. The Javanese/European horse carriage carrying the women carrying the flags, 34 sultans and kings and queens from various provinces in Indonesia sat together with military generals and commanders in the VIP sections. Military officers putting on costumes that represent their squads, doing acrobatic physical moves that represent the violence they are capable of doing. Representatives of hundreds of ethnic groups in Indonesia waving tiny Indonesian flags. And there's the live comments. Bugis hadir. Malaysia hadir. Trenggalek hadir. Hadir is a word you shout out at school when your teacher calls out your name in a roll call. Tito Ambyo, the teacher would say. And I would say, if I were in class, hadir. Hadir. I am here, I am in class, ready to be instructed. The likes and dislikes grew, and a commenter said, dislikers are dogs. And to be called a dog in Indonesia is more than an insult. It's a deeply insulting insult. Another commenter said, NKRI harga mati. Indonesia, price, death. A violent phrase that existed since the 60s. It means United Indonesia or death. Korea hadir, Taiwan hadir, Malaysia hadir. Everyone's here. Everyone's representing. Merdeka, merdeka, merdeka. Freedom, they say. Merdeka is a word you shout out at school during Independence Day ceremonies in Indonesia. I never liked saying it. I never liked saying hadir in class. I never once seriously said NKRI harga mati. Because NKRI harga mati is what you shout out at those who might make even the slightest suggestion that Indonesia might not be as united, might not be as free as we'd like to think. Surabaya hadir, Lumajang hadir, Taiwan hadir, merdeka, merdeka, merdeka. Is this what the public sphere is like in Indonesia right now? A shouting match of slogans. I mean, this is a flag-raising ceremony anyway, so maybe it attracts a specific kind of people. Yet, this is familiar. This mythological positioning of yourself to affirm and to also to shout out everyone else out of your world. Noise to shout out noise. Noise to shout out other signals. What does live streaming with all its risks look like in a society addicted to control, used to hierarchies, used to a militaristic view of the world, used to dictatorship, and a society that is now finding its own form of merdeka, of freedom and greatness? Make Indonesia great again, a commenter said. Make Indonesia great again, the same commenter repeats. Siaran langsung promises directness, promises access, but in practice what it delivers is a reaffirmation of hierarchies. The words people shout out during these live streams, including the practice of hadir, is a reaffirmation of the specific geographical imagination of Indonesia. As the motto of the nation says, unity in diversity. Bugis hadir, Malaysia hadir, Taiwan hadir, Australia hadir. Diversity, yes, everyone is here, but the center must hold. Through this imaginative roll call, the center and the periphery is reaffirmed. Who the teacher is and who the students are is made clear. Can I tell you a story? It's about the mosque in Demak, in Java. This is one of the most important mosques in Indonesia. It was built in 1479, and during the time of building, the builders argued on where to orientate the mosque. Orientation, of course, physical orientation, is a powerful thing, traditionally, because the most important buildings were to be orientated towards the holy mountains and the holy oceans, the spiritually important oceans and mountains of Java. But a mosque must, of course, be orientated towards the holy Kaaba in Mecca. So how do you negotiate these two centers of power? The holy mountains and the ocean on one hand, and Mecca on the other. Luckily, a holy man came along when the builders were arguing. Sunan Kalijogo, one of the walis, one of the founding fathers of Islam in Java. He was famous for his ability to mix Javanese culture with Islam. So when he came, the builders asked him, "Dear Sunan Kalijogo, show us the way. What should we do?" He then held the foundation stone of the mosque with his left hand. Then with his right hand he summoned the image of the Holy Kaaba live straight from the Grand Mosque of Mecca, thousands of kilometers away from Demak. And the builders were satisfied. And the building, the mosque, was built according to this orientation. He turned out to be slightly wrong. The mosque was out of kilter by about 12 degrees. In 2010, only about 600 years later, the officials from the religious department of Indonesia, possibly emboldened by the recent rise of Islamic fundamentalism, instructed the officials of the mosque to change its orientation. So works were done, the carpets were moved, and the lines were literally and metaphorically drawn. This did not last long, however. In 2012, only 2 years later, the original wrong orientation was returned after hundreds of local Muslims demanded that the original direction as ascribed by the beloved Sunan Kalijogo to be reinstalled. Because reaffirming your identity as Indonesians is not just about imagining where you are geographically, but also mythologically and spiritually. Where do you belong? Which story defines you? Which gods, which spirits, which ghosts do you listen to? A popular type of live streaming in Indonesia are ghost hunting rituals. These rituals have created YouTube celebrities. Many of them are now making a living out of telling and sharing ghost stories or going to haunted locations. This guy here, Ewing Hade, is now a movie star. This guy, Philo Sebastian, has appeared in many national television shows. Each has their own people, their groups, and this is what's different about their kind of liveness. The flag-raising ceremony uses an older mode of siaran langsung, televisual language of liveness. But the live streams of the ghost hunters are different. They borrow from the visual language of reality TV, of computer games, but they also create their own language as a strategy of in-grouping, to decide who belongs to which group. There is continuity, of course. The practice of hadir still exists quite strongly. The interaction with audience is even more highlighted than you would on TV. The production range from amateurish to highly polished. And this is also what's interesting. A live streamer who used to be a TV presenter made a comment during one live stream. He said, "Ghost hunting for YouTube is both easier and harder. Because on TV, you have a production crew following you, so the ghosts cannot be seen. But on YouTube, you are traveling light with only 2 or 3 people, and the ghosts are more likely to react." Another, who also used to be a TV presenter, said that on TV, she is searching for the ghosts. On YouTube, the ghosts are searching for her. So if siaran langsung on TV highlights directness, YouTube live streamers highlight authenticity, exclusivity. As a part of growing their audience, each live streamer creates, reuses a vocabulary and accepts the practice of authenticity. And there's a marked difference between urban and rural live streamers. This guy, for example, Ewing Hade, who comes from the city of Bogor, does a live stream every Thursday night, which in Javanese tradition is the most spiritually powerful night of the week. In this live stream, he goes through photos and videos of penampakan, ghost sightings, and he uses his skills in Photoshopping and Premiere Pro to come up with categories such as bocah double or bocah pixelate, to refer to those whom he deemed to have created fake ghost sightings. As you can guess from the word, bocah pixelate means pixelate child, or people or children, according to him, who sent in photos that are too pixelated that you can just read anything into the photo, including ghosts. Meanwhile, Sibun Misteri, who comes from a small village, highlights his position as a villager as he live streams his walks at midnight to haunted forests. And in this video, he discusses KKN Desa Penari, a ghost story that has been going viral in the last few days, using his knowledge of traditional folklore, but also repeatedly saying he's just a stupid person from a village with no education. But at the same time, he makes fun of urban people with high education, the characters in the story, who still believes in ghosts. This in-group creation seems to be quite successful if you read the live comments. The ideological streams of live comments in the videos go mostly one way, where commenters reaffirm and shout out their mythological positions and loyalty to a kind of world perspective that is represented by the YouTuber. With Ewing Hade, the urban YouTuber, the commenters would shout out bocah pixelate, as he does. With Sibun Misteri, the commenters would laugh both at themselves, as they call themselves also uninformed villagers, but also at the educated urban people, who they deem both to be too educated to be believing in ghosts, but also not educated enough in the ways of the mystical worlds, unlike them from the village. This in-grouping strategy is what is changing liveness, or what is different about liveness as a category and as practice, between liveness of TV and radio with liveness of online live streams. The centrality of television broadcasting does not require this in-grouping, but online with live streamers competing for views and clicks and ad money, a new strategy could be seen. So we have seen examples of practices around live streaming and of liveness itself in Indonesia. In a few of these examples, we see what might be termed as mythological positioning, a reinforcing of positions. And as Couldry says, peer group presence, of course, is not a new thing. But it's continuous mediation through shared access to a communications infrastructure whose entry points are themselves mobile and therefore can be permanently open, as he says. This is something new. It enables people and groups to be continuously co-present to each other even as they move independently across space. The practices around live streaming in Indonesia reaffirms this view. Peer group presence is not only a presence, It is an organizing force that is reaffirming mythological and ideological positioning that are visible on live comments in these videos. But these practices also provide some questions. Are these practices due to the format of YouTube? Is this a good way to look at the public sphere and how Indonesians carry discussions today? What is specifically different about live streaming? How should we study and analyze urban and rural practices of live streaming? And what do these mean to the category of liveness itself in the question of mediation and distribution of power in a society like Indonesia?
Siswa-siswi SMP 4 Jakarta, pasukan kirap bendera pusaka, pasukan baju tradisional, dan pasukan raja-raja dari seluruh Indonesia.